Welcome to the Ditch the Struggle podcast. I'm your host, Alana Rosso. I'm a graphic designer turned career and success coach who knew I could do better, but kept falling short of where I wanted to go. But after years of exploring personal and career development, business, money mindset, and energy work, I'm here to tell you that yes, you can move from stuck and defeated to empowered and confident. Ready to dive in? Awesome. Together, let's ditch the struggle. Okay, everyone, welcome back to part 3, the toxic boss story. Before I just jump into the performance plan review that kind of kicked everything off when I came back, I want to share one more story just to kind of exemplify how this person, this boss, Jane, was really wanting me to fail. And I think that's like the feeling that your boss or someone you're working with wants you to fail and screw up is so emotionally draining. It's such a mind fuck. It's just like, that's when you know you can't win, right? And, jumping right to the end, the hardest part of this whole experience was that I felt that I could not win, that the cards were stacked against me, that I was backed up against a wall, and that I was going to have to concede. Now, I did go the whole legal route, and I'm going to or consider the whole legal route. So I'll talk about that and share insights about that process. In the end, I did not do anything legally against the company. Sometimes I regret that decision, but I'll talk about that more in a bit. But I just want to share one more funny story about her not wanting me to succeed, is that her having no idea about what she was talking about at any time. One of the things is that we worked a lot with the global team. So the global team was really from the US, and we inherited a lot of assets from them, and they did some amazing things. Like a lot of the real cool creative came from the States. It wasn't actually coming from our Canadian team. We kind of rolled out a lot of stuff. We did some cool things for sure. But a lot of the branding assets and digital assets came from the States. And at one point, I think we were launching, I don't know if it was a blush or something, but the American team had done a really cool AR filter for Instagram. So, augmented reality, which is like computer generated effects that you combine with real life photos. I just had to get the proper definition there of what it is. The American team had done some cool filter for what to do on Instagram. And then she was like, "Oh, you need to do an AR filter." Like to me, she says this to me. And I was like, And there was that minor panic moment where should I know how to do this? Do I know how to do this? Or is this easy and I just don't know how to do it? And I mean, I'm pretty technically skilled, but not when it comes to video editing. And that goes into a whole world, and graphic designers always get their backs up because it's one thing to do print and then digital, but then to get into video is a whole other world. She's going on and on about doing an augmented reality filter. And I was like, I don't think I can do that. And she's like, I spoke to the American team and they said it's very easy. And I'm like, there's no way you spoke to the American team and asked them that, because they have totally different resources. We're on the most bare bones team. We literally would put things out to print and we'd be telling the printer, okay, I need the no frills version, the no frills budget. For anyone who's not in Canada, no frills is our cheap grocery store chain. We need we have no money to spend on this. Crazy how little budgets you get for certain projects, and you're this huge multi-million-dollar company. So I was so I decided to go to my friend who's in animation, literally has won a BAFTA for animation, a computer genius, writes and creates Photoshop filters and all this crazy stuff, math genius. And I said, should I be able to know how to do this? And he's like, no. And I said, okay, well, maybe I'll come back to you and get a quote for you to be able to do this, or some idea of what I can. Basically, I realized I was like, okay, yes, I can't do this easily. It can be done, but it's not something that I swear she wanted it done in a week or something. So I went back to Jane and I was like, okay, well, this is not something in our scope, but I can, there's people I know who can absolutely do this in Toronto. So I can, get a quote for you, and I can put together a proposal if we want to go forward with this and do this. So basically I was making this out to be a very complicated thing, because it is a complicated thing. But she was like, no, just want to snap my fingers and it should just be done. And again, this made her so mad that I was like, yeah, no, we can't do this. Not under the time constraints, and I can't personally do this. And okay, if you want me to learn AR filter design, then that's going to be a huge amount of time. And again, we're getting towards, this is the end of 2020, gearing up for all these crazy launches happening in January. So I don't know if she asked me to do this knowing I couldn't do it, but wanted to see me like fail or setting me up for failure. And it's like this really passive aggressive way to be like, you're not doing your job. So I feel like she was trying to collect the evidence that I can't do my job because she was putting me in positions constantly where I had to say, no, 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 we can't do this. And I don't want to say no. No one wants to do that. But some of it was just getting to be ridiculous, like this AR filter. So that's why I just wanted to share that story because I don't know if you've ever been in that position where you just asked to do something, it's like totally insane. And you're like, this is just, we're losing the plot. Like the plot's being lost really quickly. Okay, so not going well. I'm super stressed. And I'd had as I mentioned in episode 2, positive mid-year review in October of 2020. And then things go downhill. I take my leave of absence. And as I alluded to and mentioned in that previous episode, I knew when I came back that it was going to be difficult because if you're dealing with someone, and this is part of how you know you're dealing with a narcissist, is that they will retaliate. And also a bully will retaliate. So not only do I think that she was a covert narcissist, I believe that she was a bully. And I would actually, in my mind, she was also slightly sociopathic. And I know that also sounds dramatic. There's a book I read 20 years ago called The Sociopath Next Door. 1 in 25 people is a sociopath. They don't have feelings of empathy. They're not thinking the same way that we do. And I feel that she was definitely, she had zero empathy for anybody, and everything she did was completely fake. We at some point had to have a coffee. Like I had tried to make amends with her, and I had told the general manager, I was like, you know what, we'll have coffee. Let's just talk this out. And I was still optimistic. I think it was probably late summer of 2020 that we could just get along. Like, when you're still like, it's not going to work, but you're going to try and get along. So we went for coffee, and it was just like, a part of it was that we weren't communicating the same way. Like, I do think a large part of it was cultural, different expectations, different ways of doing things, different interpretations of how we're communicating, for sure. Like, I didn't like those all caps emails. But it was just her pretending to be my friend. And it's the fakeness. I can see the fakeness. And I can see this with people. I go to parties and there's some people who are events and some people that everyone loves. And I was like, yeah, that person is like so fake. And I'm not saying this from a place of I can see things that other people can't. But I do think empaths, and I consider myself like an HSP, which is a highly sensitive person. We walk into a room and we feel things differently. I'm not usually a fan of labels, but I do feel like I fall into the HSP category. There's a great documentary. Actually, Alanis Morissette is kind of the main person in the documentary. And I think it's called Sensitive. I'll find the link to it for the show notes. 20% of the population just feels things differently. And I'm definitely in that world. I'm okay with labels as long as they're not coming from the DSM, which is the DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. I don't necessarily trust things that come out of that. However, I do feel like the HSP label can sometimes be helpful in understanding how we navigate things. So I feel like I pick up on a lot of things. And when we had this coffee, I just felt she was being so fake. And one of the things that also really just rubbed me the wrong way is that she was on the phone coming into the conversation. She had just gone off the phone, actually. And she just started going on about how frustrated and how much she didn't like her husband. I never really like when people talk disparagingly about their partners or anyone in their life, and I don't want to know your business too, because we're work colleagues. So it felt really uncomfortable. Again, that could have been a cultural thing. She would often talk really badly about her husband. I didn't like that at all. Made me just feel really gross inside. So we have this fake coffee. We pretend to hug it out, and I tell, just to keep the peace, that the general manager that everything's fine. Everything's not fine because I go on my leave. So I have this amazing 6 weeks. As I said, it was the first time I'd taken this much time. And I was so appreciative of it because it really did give me some time to calm my nervous system. And it was the holidays too. So I really loved it. So I come back. What's the date here? So I'm coming back January 11th. So Monday, January 11th. I was off from November 26, 2020 to January 11th, 2021. I am back in the office for not even 2 days. So we're remote, okay? And I'm not even back 2 days. And they had to deliver my computer back to me and my work phone because they had taken this away, which was amazing, in the end of November. And no one delivered my computer and phone on the Monday. So I didn't actually get any hardware until the Tuesday, the 12th. In the meantime, I'm just catching up on emails using my Gmail. So I'm just keeping in touch with the team on the Gmail. But I don't have my work email. I don't have I used to have an Excel spreadsheet with keeping my priorities and all that stuff. And so I'm back and she sends me an email that she wants my priorities list. Now, I never used to share this priorities list with her originally. I don't know when I started to have to, but it was just I just shared it with my team. It's like, this is what we're working on. And then I would check in with Jane to tell her what I was working on. Another funny thing that happened is that she would cancel all of our touch bases that were supposed to be, I don't know, weekly or biweekly. She would just cancel them all. And then when they were never rescheduled, she said that I was supposed to be the one to book them, that I was supposed to book the touch bases with her. I don't know how that's supposed to work because I book a touch base with my team when I need to chat with them. Just weird. Okay, so I come back, I share my priorities file. Now, what's going to happen? Okay, so I've got a list of all of these jobs that are working on. I was talking to the team, what's going on? I get a list of everything. Then I start assigning who's working on what, right? Now, I've been away for 6 weeks. Am I going to be on this list much? No, because there's 10, 12 projects that are wrapping up that the team has been working on. So their name is on it. I've assigned them to it because they know what's happening. I'm not going to take over a project that's 90% done. That's the most inefficient thing you could possibly do. And every designer knows that because the more you touch, more different people touch files, the more room for error there is. So that is not efficient. Again, this is me making a judgment call. So I was really only assigning myself to new projects coming down the pipe or things that were definitely in my line of expertise. She did not like this. She did not like that basically my name was only a little bit on the list. Another important thing to note here is when I came back, it was a transition. I was coming back at a limited hours. I was only doing 20 hours a week for I think the first 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks. So we're talking about 4 hours a day. So of course, I'm not going to be assigning myself as many projects as everybody else because I'm on part-time hours basically. And that was part of the agreement that I had. And this was with the insurance people knew about this and the whole thing. It is a bit of a thing to do that insurance, as I mentioned in episode 2. Also, there will be an agent from the insurance company that checks in on you to see how you're doing. So, I just like to let people know about that. So that's a bit of a thing. So I come back and she's like, can you share your priorities list? I said, okay. So I send the priority list and it just says, hi, Jane, here are our priorities for the week. And here's what she responds. And this sent me reeling, which is exactly what she wanted. Thank you for sharing your priorities, Alana. For next week, I'd like to see 2 files, one with your priorities and one with the team's priorities. I'm seeing that the team has a lot of things on their plate right now. And my recommendation is that you take your stuff back. We all have to do our PCR, and the team has more than 8 priorities now. And if we add the PCR as well on their list. Thanks, Jane. So this is really on the Wednesday. I've been back at the office, virtual office, not even 3 days. I'd only had a computer for a day. So I'm just getting back into the swing of things. I'm on limited hours. And it was the whole idea that you take your stuff back. Again, she would get so triggered when I would assign and delegate to other people that I wasn't doing my job. Can you imagine coming back from stress leave and then being told that you're not basically taking responsibility for your job and your role and your work, which as a high achiever, that is like a stab in the stomach, which is what she's trying to do. And I was just so mad about this email. This really just so it's like the beginning of the end at this point because I couldn't believe this response. Now, I understand that from an interpretation point of view, you could read this it's time you take your stuff back. And but I knew her, right? So then this kind of does tie into when I started looking at, the legal process. What I felt was happening was constructive dismissal. I felt like I was actually being forced out of my position through a whole bunch of basically I guess you could call them microaggressions or little things. And, I did have a case. I had spoke to 4 lawyers, and I had actually decided to work with one of them. And he's like, you do have a case. It's not the strongest case I've ever seen because some of this stuff is like a little bit open to interpretation. And it's like it's that passive aggressive thing. But as the person reading it, what's going on, especially if you're in any way intuitive, right? So she was real mad that I was giving more projects to the team in the beginning, that I was coming back than I was taking on. So that wasn't going so well. So what it comes down to is I kind of kept doing my job. And then, so I'm back, started back January 11th. And then in February of 2021, so I'm basically back working maybe a month. And I was away 6 or 7 weeks before that. And I'd had a positive, okay, so let's just look at this. I'd had a positive mid-year review October 6, 2020. By February 2021, I'm going to share with you what happens in my review with this performance plan, this PCR thing. So we're talking about 3 or 4 months of time, of which I was away 6 or 7 weeks. So there's really not much actual work time here, especially because of the Christmas holidays. And I knew, again, that she was going to retaliate. And the best way for her to do that was through this performance plan review. And now we were very carefully instructed on how to write these performance reviews for our team. And like, you're supposed to lead with positive and then kind of bring in some things that, challenges or things that the person needs to work on. But there was very much a philosophy with this company that you had to focus on the positive. And, I can appreciate that. But again, I hate doing these performance plans. I hated writing them. I hated doing them for people or like for the team. This is just stuff I hate about corporate culture. And at this point, by the time I got this performance plan, I had talked to HR about the challenges, that I was reaching a breaking point, that I had gone on leave because of that. And so I was starting to loop HR into it. Now, I have said this before, I believe. If I haven't, I'm saying it now. HR is really not on your side. That's not to say they're not some great people working in HR, but their responsibility is their loyalty has to be to the company before you. So a little bit of hammer time here. And in this case, it was really effed up because our HR director reported to our general manager. So my boss's boss. So the HR person is reporting to my boss's boss, not to the global team, which now I believe they do actually, because it was like a total conflict of interest. So it's like my boss's boss is writing is also doing the performance plan review of the HR director. Like it just made no sense. So of course the HR director has to side with my boss's boss, and now my boss's boss is like protecting my boss. So can you see how just cards were stacked against me? Yeah. So let's just look at, after completing my performance plan, and I will tell you that I went to town on breaking down every single thing that we accomplished in the year, that like 2020 year. We had done over, I think we executed over 300 projects. And when I say projects, each of those projects, some of them had like 100 pieces of collateral within them. It was insane. And we had done around 200 the previous year, 2019. So I was kind of keeping track of everything. Great. I got positive feedback from my team. And so then here, February 2021, this is what happens. I'm not reading every single word, but I've taken out the best pieces for you guys to hear. Also note that this was sent to me at 5:00 on a Friday, so that I had the whole weekend to lose my shit, right? Of course. So here's some of the feedback from Jane. Alana needs to develop emotional intelligence and change management skills. An important area of an improvement for Alana is to work on her emotional intelligence. It is expected she takes a more hands-on approach and takes the lead. The expectation of her role during 2021 is to take the creative marketing content to the next level, elevating outputs of her team and ensuring world-class quality. A higher level of creative support is required within the marketing department in order to exceed the expectations of the department goals. The expectation is that a manager from my team should take on every task that may be requested, because every task will add value to the team and to the company. She also wanted me to coach and guide my direct reports through constant monitoring. Constant monitoring. Okay, so it's really hard to read that with just not like throwing up a little bit. So let's just break this down here. The emotional intelligence piece. Okay, so again, this is someone who knows how to kick someone in the gut because I've been in the coaching world. She knows in the coaching world. And the idea that I don't have emotional intelligence, well, everyone needs to work on all their skills. I would say that's just insanity. I'm too empathic. I'm picking up all the cues from different people. And generally, I feel like I have high emotional intelligence. So I thought that was really interesting that that's what she came out with. That's what she came out swinging with. Those were like some of the first comments. Take on a more hands-on approach. Again, she hated when I delegated things, even though I was working my ass off and working late nights all the time. It was well known that I would just do whatever. I went in weekends when I started this job. I did. I went in weekends on the office because it was quiet and I could figure what the hell I was doing because it was such a learning curve. And I do appreciate that I learned so much there. I love some of this though because it's written like a politician, which actually it's a whole bunch of nothing. So I got to take my marketing content to the next level. What the hell does that mean? Ensuring world-class quality. I just love this. Makes me laugh. World-class quality. That's just like, did anyone see Step Brothers? I'm getting like a whole like, when he does the presentation with like prestige, what is it? Prestige companies or something. Getting very much a Step Brothers vibe here. Okay, so higher level creative support. Again, this is like, you're not telling me what I need to do. You're just throwing words around like you're not doing enough. Basically, you're not doing enough. And so how do you trigger someone who's a people pleaser and a high achiever and is like a kind of a workaholic? You tell them you're not doing enough because then it's like every childhood wound comes up. And then one of my favorite parts, of course, of this is that I need to take on every task that may be requested because every task will add value. Now, this is a ridiculous thought process that everything, like there are so many companies and jobs where you're doing make work, right? And how much does that trigger people? It's like doing work and projects for the sake of doing work. Spending hours and hours and hours on a Christmas card makes no sense to me. There's no return on that investment. It's just stupid. And then the best part is that she wanted me to do constant monitoring. So she basically wanted me to be a micromanager. She actually was not able to be a micromanager because she didn't actually know how to do her job enough to, I think, micromanage properly. And I'm never going to be a micromanager. That is, no one who's worked with me will ever say that. In fact, I have to coach so many people who are traumatized from working with a micromanager because it means the person doesn't trust you and that they know how to do the job better than you. Now, again, in this case, Jane couldn't say that because she didn't know how to do a job. But I will never constantly monitor. I will never micromanage. And no one has ever come to me in all the years that I have done coaching and said, you know what I really want? I really want a micromanager boss. Yeah, I just want someone who's going to look over my shoulder, check everything 500 times, and they're just going to criticize every single thing I do and not give me any breathing room. I really, really want that. No one's going to do that. You do want support. You do want someone you can come to who has an open door policy, 1,000%. And hopefully I was doing that. I'd like to think I did. Not to say that I was always amazing at my job. I'm the first to admit that. And again, towards the end, I just was like throwing my hands up in the air and just like, F this. I don't know how to do this anymore. It's just like, I'm too tapped out and I can't win. So that feeling was just really, really hard. So this little bomb drops on me. There was nothing positive in it. You're supposed to, again, bring in positive pieces into the performance review. Other than I think something like she got her job done or like she got part of her assets done or something like that. But there was really not much to it. So positive. So then when I, came back to work on Monday, again, we're still remote at this point. I brought it up with HR and I was like, I'm not signing this. You're supposed to sign it and like acknowledge it. I was like, I'm not signing this. And you know what's the crazy thing? These things are, again, just so stupid because I was like, HR's like, okay, well, you can just not sign it. And I'm like, but doesn't this have to go into like some kind of system? And then I was kind of thinking, okay, this is now in this like system, which is we were part of a huge global network. I was like, am I now going to be blacklisted by every single company that is connected to this company? And if I wanted to work in beauty, I would be somehow not able to. I was really concerned about that, but they said, no, it's just, internal. And they're like, you just don't have to sign it. I was like, what's the point of doing this? Like, this is just all smoke and mirrors. It just really set me off. And then it began a whole series of um, me realizing that I was being retaliated and then me keeping track of every single thing. So this is when I got like obsessive and I'm looking at like pages here now of like every meeting, like what happened when I came back, how I was like asking for overtime hours and was never acknowledged them. So I had to do all this extra work. Um, Everything, just how she was AWOL again every Friday. She seemed to be gone. I don't know where she was. No, like, and like important things had to be done. And I'd say she was completely irrational, and I don't do well with irrational behavior. So this became just out of control. And a whole bunch of emails were going to HR, and I put in formal complaints, right? So I knew that HR was not going to have my back. HR was reporting to the GM, and this person was protected. I knew that all along. I still feel that to this day. And what's interesting is a different general manager has come into this company who's quite smart, very rational, understands what's a good worker and what's not a good worker, and this person still has their job. So the difficult part of this whole story, and this is what is hard for me to, to see with other people, is that things might not change, and you can see the injustice. You can see how awful and unfair this whole thing. You can see the toxic behavior, but you know what the only choice is? The best choice is to leave the job, is to leave the company. And that's so hard. I didn't want to leave this job. I liked it. I was like so many people, scared to leave. I didn't want to have to go and just figure things out again. I liked my job. But I do think the universe was like, okay, you know what, Alana? We're going to give you the worst boss possible, like the one that triggers you the most, the one that makes you feel incompetent or tries to poke holes in all of your capabilities, because that's the only way you're going to leave and change paths. Like, we're just going to give you the worst possible experience. It's not like just a sort of bad boss. You're like, oh, this person's an idiot at night, but I can handle it. This is like, we're going to give you the person that literally triggers you every day and is sending you into like having to take leave. That's what we're going to give you so that you change course. And it is interesting what happened after I did leave the job, so I'll share that and how timing just worked out. But anyways, a whole bunch of complaints to HR, and I will read some of what HR sent me. So April 12th, 2021, I ended up leaving the job end of May, so I probably lasted about a month after this one. They did capture kind of what my complaints were. So I'll read some of this, what my issue was, and then I'll read a part of their response. It was no surprise here. And I know lots of people recently who have gotten similar, almost exact letters like this. Okay, the primary feedback you shared with us is as follows. You felt that you were being retaliated against for taking a leave of absence and that you were in a toxic work environment. You felt that you were not being communicated with clearly in a respectful and timely manner. You felt that your decisions as a manager were being questioned and construed as not being a team player. You felt that you were not getting the support you needed when asking for additional work hours to complete a project. You felt that there was not an appreciation or understanding of the work priorities and complexity. You felt that your time was not being respected. You felt that there were some cultural differences that led to some of the misunderstandings. You felt that you were not given positive feedback about your contributions to key work projects. You felt that your 2020 PCR was not fairly written or considered ever contributions throughout the year. So check for HR for actually capturing. That's exactly what I've talked about through these episodes here. And then it goes on to, so they acknowledge the shit that I went through. I've conducted a thorough, fair, and objective investigation into each of your concerns. This memo is to confirm the conclusion of my investigation of the situation. Based on the findings of the investigation, we conclude that the incident of retaliation you described could not be clearly classified as a reprisal as defined under the Ontario Human Rights Commission, as the following criteria were not established. An action was taken against or a threat was made to the claimant. The alleged action or threat was related to the claimant having claimed. It kind of goes on to explain it wasn't like a full retaliation. And I really can't argue with this because, in a way, even though it's kind of bullshit, her stuff was kind of so subtle and was, and I'm leaving out a few other things that had come up, but it wasn't like she's not calling me on the phone or sending me emails that say you're a complete idiot and like you can't, just all these things. But she was doing things like she was. So basically, she didn't violate any policy, and then, the matter is now closed is how it ends. No surprise there. And that's when I was like, okay, this is really, this is not going to go well. So I started having conversations with my husband about leaving. He was very supportive. And it's kind of a crazy time to leave a job because, so Jacqueline had also, how do I say this? His job was no longer available to him in 2021. So this was, I would say 2021 generally is probably one of the hardest years I've ever been through. I still have not worked through everything that's happened. The job loss, one of them, just so much was going on in the world. I mean, the heightened state of everyone, the heightened state of the media, was insane. So it was a hard time to leave the job. I was like, where am I going to go to? But I did, and then I had considered the legal route to sue for constructive dismissal. Now, the thing with that is that you do have to potentially go through hearings or like court, like physically see this person in court and go through a whole thing. And my gut was that she is so protected that this is just not going to go in my favor. There was a part of me that also didn't have the energy to do this. And this is kind of what they count on, is that you're so depleted. They wear you down. You're just drained. Because it's all of these little micro things that happen. And I didn't really feel like I had the energy for it. That made me feel a little bit more like a failure. Like I should be able to fight for myself. I want to fight for myself, but I don't know if I can. And also, I don't know if I'll win. Again, I had a lawyer who was very willing to take on the case. I talked to 4 and then I'd settled on 1. But I wasn't feeling 100% confident. And I just, at the end of the day, I just felt this person is so protected. There's just something going on behind the scenes. I could just smell a rat. There's no way that this company that had, such a great team overall would let this person stay if there wasn't something going on. I don't know who's got pictures of what, but there's just something weird. So I decided not to go the legal route and I decided to resign. And it was a really simple resignation letter. And this was hard because I felt like they won. I felt like these people won. And I say these because it was like not just her. There was like, again, she was backed up by the GM. And I felt like I was caving in. I felt like I was just giving up. I like to be a fighter. And I was really sad that there was no way I could make this job work and that I had to give up this world and this role. And I didn't know what I was going to do, whether I was just going to keep freelancing or what after. But ultimately, I just felt like the bad guys won. And that is a hard thing to sit with. There's a little video I did as soon as I sent the email resignation, which Declan had to kind of keep prompting me to send. I did a quick video just to capture the moment of what it felt like. And I had shared this on Instagram. I may reshare this. What I'll do is I'll probably reshare that video just before these episodes come out, just to kind of give you, a little bit behind the scenes, but it was pretty tough. But what's interesting is that, okay, I leave this job, not easy. I think 5 weeks later, my mom who'd had a whole bunch of health challenges got admitted into hospital, and she did not leave hospital. She was in there all summer until October 1st of that year, 2021, when she passed. So I left the job, which left me open to be available to my mom who was dying in palliative care. Had I been in a job, I could have taken short-term compassionate leave, which I had done when I was at Harlequin and my dad had been sick. But it really freed me. So it was just kind of strange the way it happened that suddenly I'm without a job. But I was able to then be there for my mom. And also I had another family hospitalized at the same time and be there for them. So and that was more important. Like if I look back to the summer of 2021, it's really all about being there for other people. And I had to cut myself away from that job to be able to do that for other people. And I know it was just weird the way it happened. Very weird. And I'm so grateful that I had that time. There was a financial toll to doing this, right? So I didn't have that nice like corporate income. Would I do anything differently? No. I wouldn't go back and not quit. However, there was a part of me that did wish I had taken legal action. Now, interestingly, I had 2 years to take legal action, so it's past that, obviously now, and this is part of the reason why I'm recording it so much later. But I could have. I had 2 years to decide. But I didn't feel confident it was going to really get me anywhere. So I decided not to. And I feel okay about the decision. And then thinking back at this whole experience is that, again, I feel like a huge part of it was getting derailed was pushing me in a different direction. And after I did this, I kind of ramped up my coaching business. I found some other freelance clients. Like, the thing is, I landed on my feet, and we usually do land on our feet. It's just a tough going. And then that huge piece of being able to be there for family when they really needed it. And I needed like huge chunks of time to do it. And also I needed the emotional and physical bandwidth to take care of other people, having just kind of gone through a lot myself. It all just kind of worked out. The other huge part of this is the acceptance piece that things will not go your way. Things are going to be really effed up in corporate culture, and you will go through pain. And I have to accept that this person was able to do what she did, that she is not competent and is still able to have a job. And meanwhile, me, who was totally competent, was kind of pushed out of her job. And there's the acceptance piece that this is how the world works. And this is really hard as we see so much injustice and so much awful things happen every day. And what I love is that I do have a lot of empathy, new empathy for people going through this position. And the one thing I really want to leave you with is that it's not you, it is them. And I know we want to put all the responsibility on ourselves. And I'm not saying we don't take responsibility for our lives, but their agenda, these toxic bosses, is to make you feel like you are the bad one and you are the crazy one and you are the one effing up. Again, not to say I didn't do not so great in certain areas, but they want you to believe that you are the one in the wrong. And that's the way the mental manipulation goes. That's that's what they do. That is part of their agenda, is to F things up and to make you feel like you are not good. Yet they want to chip away at your confidence. They want to bring you down. And it's so painful to think, why do these people want to bring other people down like this? Like, it's truly evil the way they do it. And as I said, I've had a lot of narcissists come in and out of my life in the past. Fortunately, not in my personal relationships or people I've like dated, but in work relationships for sure, and friendships. And they will drag you down. And some of them are really, really out to get you. And they have an agenda. And going back to what Heather Monahan, that coach, said, is that if you are a threat, you are a target. And I was a threat and I was targeted. And 100%, I know that to this day, even though, it's definitely not as bad as some other people's stories out there. It chipped away at my confidence. It made me feel physically sick, mentally sick, emotionally just awful. And it took me time to get over it. Now, I am happy to report that I just don't have people like these in my work life now. I love all the clients I'm working with. And now I can see the red flags so clearly. And I've had job interviews since this job where I could see some of these red flags or see qualities in this boss and other people. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going down that route. But the only thing I could do here was leave. And unfortunately, that is the best course of action for a lot of people. Now, when I'm coaching people, I can't say, yeah, you need to just leave their job. You have to come to that conclusion yourself, and you have to come to the right time for it. I don't know if any time is going to feel like the exact right moment to jump ship, but I knew on the day that I did resign that was the day for me, that I had done enough. I had tried enough. I had worked hard enough. I was tired of showing up as kind of a bad version of myself, or the worst version of myself. I had too much to offer, and I didn't like being dragged down into a crappy version of myself. So it's taken me a long time to build back up, but you can do it. And honestly, the main thing is to take the time out for yourself and remove yourself from the situation. Physically remove yourself, energetically remove yourself. You got to let it go. And I had to let this job go. It was really hard. I'm still sad about it some days. I love everyone I worked with for the most part, but this is what had to happen. This is my story. I own it. And in a weird way, I am glad it happened to me, if only so that I can share that bad things happen to good people. It's not always your fault. In this case, it wasn't my fault, but it happened. And I am grateful for the experience in the weirdest way. Take care, guys. Thank you for joining me today on Ditch the Struggle. You showing up here means so much to me. To dig deeper into the topics discussed today and to learn about my work, visit alanarosa.com. And don't forget to download your free resources while you're there. And if this episode resonated with you, please share with others who also want to ditch the struggle. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, leave a rating and a review, and let me know what you'd like to see more of on this podcast. And before I go, I want to leave you with my 3 favorite ways to ditch the struggle. Be your own best advocate, take baby steps for the win, and forget about a linear career path. It's overrated and you are doing just fine. See you next time.